Did you know, viewers, that Justin was my senior prom date? We came with other people, but the photos of just us, like, having a bromance were so romantic. Much better.
I have that photo framed above my bed. It's on my
Really?
ceiling.
That's so romantic.
I look at it every night before I go to sleep.
Out the way.
Hey guys, I'm Serena Laurel, and we're here to talk about the new Gorillaz album, Humanz. Here with me, I have Zach Callison.
Uncensored.
And Justin Tinucci.
Attempting to be censored.
Damon Albarn, who's the lead singer of the band Blur, heads the music, and Jamie Hewlett, who does comic book art.
And together, they consist of 4 characters. 2D on vocals, Noodle on guitar, Russell drums and percussion, and Murdoch on bass guitar.
Noodle's the best, for the record.
She's 13.
Still?
Humanz was released on April 28th of this year. Because they hadn't released anything in 6 or 7 years, it was a highly anticipated album.
They had a huge song called Clint Eastwood. Demon Days, their album, they won a Grammy from that one. Feel Good Inc. is still played every 2 songs on K-Rock on the radio. Plastic Beach and The Fall both came out in 2010.
So it's good to see them back together and making stuff.
Amen.
Especially when a lot of people thought that this was the end of the Gorillaz. Let's get started. Ascension's my favorite one off the album, personally.
I thought Ascension was a really good way to start off the album and give a tone to the record with the kind of doomsday vibe. The fact that the whole thing is above 125 BPM, they want to keep like a party vibe going the whole time, but it's also kind of about the world ending.
But Ascension, yes, it is a great way to start the album. Vince Staples really showed the world what he can do because he's very talented and not as popular as he should be.
My favorite is probably Andromeda. I think
I
think as a single, that one follows up way better than the last big single that they had on Plastic Beach. What was it? Melancholy Hill. I think Andromeda is kind of the next.
There's 20 tracks and 26 for the deluxe. If you guys had to take away a song, what would it be?
Sex Murder Party. 100%, because you set it up with a really cool interlude. I like that interlude. It seems like something epic is about to happen. It's very foreboding, and then you have a song called Sex Murder Party afterwards. Like, you're expecting something awesome, and then it just sort of flounders for 4 minutes.
Probably take away either Carnival or Moments. Those are my 2 weakest
Moments. It was one of the standouts for me because it was so different from everything on the record. I could totally hear it come in some weird bohemian club and people go crazy to that. It's very bouncy, it's very dancey. De La Soul put some good bars on it. It's experimental, and some of the experiments on this album didn't go as planned.
And I don't think Danny Brown should have been on the album.
For me, Submission kind of feels like the Gorillaz version of the It Takes Two song that Carly Rae Jepsen and Lil Yachty did. And Zach loves that song.
The banger of the year.
I don't think that song is very great.
I feel like he could have been fit into this album at some point if Albarn wanted him on there. But it was the wrong song, and the verse wasn't really that good. Danny Brown, he's done other tracks where he raps as himself, not doing that voice that he does, because that's a character he plays.
Right.
The bars on Submission felt like something that Danny Brown would have rapped, rather than the character that Danny Brown would have rapped, even though he does get personal at times.
Thinking of characters, some of the singers are actually supposed to be, I feel like, characters in the Gorillaz world.
The Gorillaz need a television series. I think, like an animated TV series.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what the visuals are for Andromeda and some of the other tracks, because that for me is 50% of what the Gorillaz are.
Yeah.
And we don't see that yet because they are the music videos. The Gorillaz actually have an app where they have all of their music videos and clippets and picture art and just the whole world of the Gorillaz.
That's what made Saturn's Bars for me. I didn't think it was a very good song until I watched the music video, and just what they did with the 360 view I thought was pretty incredible.
Let's talk about Saturn's Bars really quick and what you thought of the music video.
I liked it until it got 3D and they went into the sort of the dream world, and the production value just dropped really, really far. I don't know if it was an intentional choice to look low budget. Didn't really execute it in a way that captivated me like the beginning of the video did. When they roll up in the car and they're playing Ascension, you see the feet walk into the house. Like, that was really cool and I was engaged, but 30 seconds into like the slice of pizza flying around, I was like, I'm done with this video.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the character that he portrays in the music video. It didn't catch my attention as much.
I don't feel like we saw enough of some of them. 2D is on the album quite a bit, which is good.
I don't think he's on that. If you listen, if you compare it to the previous albums, he's more of the actual head singer in the other albums. And this one, it feels like he's a backup singer to the rest of these other artists.
Sometimes he just fills the atmospheric vibe.
Which he's good at. That's his defining trait as a vocalist. He's very vibey. I feel like the collaboration and feature list on this album is a little bit too heavy, and not a lot of them work. Like Let Me Out with Mavis Staples and Pusha T, it's perfect. Great combination. Let Me Out was but unorthodox. Track. Yeah.
I don't like the fact that they bleeped out Donald Trump's name. I think they could have made more of an impact with the whole album if they were going for a political vibe anyway. If so many people are really sticking strong to it. You were saying something totally different, though.
Albart said that he did that because he didn't want to give Trump any more, fame and exposure in the media than he already does. And that's certainly a valid stance on it.
That just equivocates him to Voldemort, though. I don't think we should be afraid. I think bleeping it out gives the wrong message.
Yeah, we shouldn't be not speaking his name.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that, though, is he was telling all his guest artists that came on the record, imagine an alternate reality where Donald Trump becomes president far before the election. They had already made most of the album by the time the election happened.
And that's why I think they should leave it on the album, because that was before he was even elected. So it wasn't the idea to be... it was a fictional reality in their eyes.
It felt like a fever dream. That's what this album feels like, for better or for worse.
That's a good way to put it. Let's talk about Hallelujah Money. I just don't understand why it was the first single.
I feel like it fits the theme, though. Hallelujah Money. If we're speaking about the political themes of this album, that nails it.
Yeah, that's pretty satirical.
A little too much. It's too long. It would have worked as a longer interlude.
Talking about being too long, same thing with track 8, Charger. I loved the guitar riff in it. It's really catchy, but beyond that and the main little melody, it just repeats over and over.
It should have been an interlude and not a...
It could have been 45 seconds.
One of the only songs that I don't like 2D on. Like, the melody was kind of whack. I get that he was going for some sort of, chopped up dissonant sound with that song, but the guitar riff is great. The loop is cool. Grace Jones is great, but she recorded 4 hours of vocals for that song, and two lines got left in. She was very much underutilized on this album.
Further down the album, I just started losing interest because it's so long. And
right after Busted in Blue, I kind of lost interest slowly.
Busted in Blue was great. It was just emotional and deep and wholehearted. It was a really good song.
It was the ballad that this album desperately needed.
This album sounds a lot different than their previous albums. They've talked about how each album is supposed to have its own sound.
This is Plastic Beach's emo younger brother. 100%. That was the album where they really moved away from real instruments and more of that hip-hop sound, brought in a lot more hip-hop features. I think the amount that they had on it, with Russell rapping on Feel Good Inc., and then MF Doom on November Has Come, you can't get any cooler than that with a feature as far as hip-hop goes.
I think the Gorillaz tried to keep modern in a lot of contexts other than just their music. They had a bunch of features with people who were popular and relevant now. They had a 360 music video for Saturn's Bars. They were talking about a world after Donald Trump becomes president. They're animated characters, so that makes them ageless. But their music still sounds the same as what they were doing a decade ago.
Yeah, it sounds like a Gorillaz album, but it doesn't sound like the best Gorillaz album, which is it's still Demon Days in my opinion, and they've moved away quite a bit from that sound, which, I mean, progression is great, but...
there's so much in that bank of tools to be used.
I would have liked this album a lot better if they introduced a cast of characters to match with every single feature's voice. It would have given it way more depth, but it just felt like a bunch of random voices coming in, which is why I said like a television show or some sort of extended media where they can really dig into the characters more than they have. The first half of the album really grabbed me. Between Ascension, Strobe Light's a pretty solid track, Saturn's Bars, I really like Moments. I know you guys are not about it, but I thought it was great. Really everything from the first half except Submission all the way down to Busted in Blue I was a fan of, and then Let Me Out, and a few tracks from the bottom, but like you said earlier, I'm not going to listen to this album again all the way through after the few times I did for this video.
A lot of the Gorillaz' previous albums and their songs have really been hit or miss for me. Like, a lot of them have just been, everyone knows them, and they've just been hits. And then for this, I feel like there's not going to be that many songs, or any at all, that really make it that far.
I think Andromeda will.
Okay. Actually, that 30-minute interview that they did explains a lot of what this album kind of...
Yeah.
Even from Murdoch talking about how he captured 2D and kind of brought him into this band.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I think some of the ADHD-ness of the album might have been intentional because of the character traits of Murdoch and 2D, because they're kind of scattered. With that interview, because it's with the animations, you can tell that it's very formed to how they want the characters to be perceived.
Okay, ratings. Based off of my first listen, I thought it was more of a 5 or 6 out of 10. So that's what I'm gonna go with because I feel like the first impressions are always going to be the most important when listening to music.
You know, my first listen, I had it at a 5. And then my second listen went all the way up to an 8, especially because of the first half. A lot of those tracks I will revisit. It's going to settle somewhere in the middle. I'm going to go with a 7 out of 10, just because like you said, I'm probably not going to listen to this album full length again, even though Demon Days for years has been something I'll always be able to go back to. It just doesn't have that same timeless feel.
And I'm going to give it a 6.712 out of 10. Because I'm just kind of in the middle of your opinions on the album.
Like really, really in the middle, apparently.
I feel like I'm on the low side. You're more on the high side of it, and you're in the middle.
There's like knowing your review score, and then there's knowing more than one digit of pi.
I think if you like songs immediately, it has a certain sense of sensibility to it. But there's also albums I've found in the past where it's taken me a few listens to really fall in love with it. And one really big example is Vessel by 21 Pilots. When I first listened to it, it was really eclectic and out there and weird. And I didn't like it a lot, and then I just listened to it a few more times and went gorilla for it.
Oh my
Get
god.
out. Get out.
I wanted to keep on the jungle theme, so I wore a cheetah
Yeah, well, we're
shirt.
humans here.
We failed. Oh, God. I'm so done with you people. I was told I'd be paid for this! Ah!
We have Justin Tinucci and Zach Callison.
What?
Are you a human?
I like to think so. Justin's not.
I'm not. I'm
Justin's
not
cosmic,
from
man.
this planet. I'm somewhere out in that galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.